Recording.
Yes.
Okay, 6:30, we're gonna call meeting to order. We have a full board, but so we need to approve the minutes of July 26th. Second that, take a vote.
I'll just read a statement. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of July 25th, 2022 meeting.
A second, all in favor? Aye.
Same thing.
Transfers. Several pages. Anybody have any questions on any?
We'll have chart of accounts.
Say,
Does anybody have a chart of accounts?
no,
We got a lot of numbers here, but we don't know which departments these transfers are.
these are all the year-end transfers for.
So it's gonna be done with those.
What's the asterisk next to the Stafford rule?
So it has to go to vote.
Meeting, it's already pointed out.
That's why the asterisk is there? And that was money we had in the budget to keep Stafford zone open. And then we transferred over to software and computer service.
Yes.
Yes.
Any other questions? Well, where that says it has to go to vote, does that mean when we vote on this, we're voting minus that transfer?
You can make the motion to accept that, subject to that one.
Okay.
There are two transfers that go on.
Two?
Yes. One of the public works. Well.
The recycling, the snow and emergency fund. Okay.
Okay, yes, yeah.
That's right.
I think that was good.
Almost like the
Transfer stations.
So back to those, oh,
Salaries for snow emergency.
So, can I just ask a question about that? Is that for this coming year or is this for expenses in the past year?
correcting the funds. We didn't have any money budgeted for the,
We hit pretty hard last year from overtime highway department. You guys recall last summer we had rain in 17 days. So we spent probably 4 weekends out of the summer. A lot of it was on Sundays, just trying to catch up with their roads. You know, make sure we get four storms developed. I haven't been done on Sunday or all.
100,000. Well, half of them per so. Okay, can I get a motion?
I have one question. I don't know if you answer this or not, but on the building and the zoning department, on the educational maintenance fees. Is that's $1,465.67. Is it just that we didn't calculate right on building permits? And they put the education fees for each building permit in the proper account? Or were they estimating what we did? Because when they apply for a building permit, a certain percentage of that building permit fee is automatically taken in the application. Does our software not pull that over to a separate account, or do they?
No, you're right, it's estimated.
Excuse me?
It's estimated in the budget.
Okay.
All of these budgets are estimated.
Sounds like we got just roll through this. So I'm gonna make a motion that we accept the transfers, accept the two. That's for the town meeting.
Well, no, just make the motion and identify the two have to be funding.
So if they go to the past, except the minimum 20%.
Okay, so we're going to make a motion to accept the transfers. Going to based on, I think, two going to town meeting.
Yes.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you for not making the speed all over there. I saw, I was like, oh my God, it's gonna make us either one of those in the record. Okay, credit for emergency funds. Like you salary.
Okay. Little history, I don't know if everybody remembers, Northwest One, East Side of East, this August 4th, 2020. We spent quite a bit of money just finding that storm for most tropical storms, and they're reimbursable by FEMA. The problem is that the amount of time it takes for the FEMA grant to get reimbursed is there. So we ended up with a shortfall in budget lines for that year. I mean, it took so much energy to one storm, one declaration of that. So what we would like to do is take the reimbursement without our recycling, just recently, and create a fund, and a fund that only be used for declaration emergency type responses. We would create a shortfall every time we have a storm event. Is we could draw off that fund and then reimburse it once the reimbursement. That makes sense.
So this is FEMA reimbursements we received for a storm 2 years ago. That's just finally got sent to the general fund.
Correct.
So is there any money in storm response fund now, or just would be
It would be a brand.
So this would only be used with FEMA event.
I would say it's my question. You can't, at the time of the event, we can't definitively say that it is or it's not going to be a event. So you have to wait till that declaration comes up from the press. But I think if we declare it a disaster emergency, governor and the best disaster emergency, we likely see more reimbursement would become great. The threshold by county that would be great. But it would the fund would only be used for those events that we assume would be events.
Basically, generally, but I have a question. I think Tony was asked too. Let's say there's a really bad tornado, hypothetically, and FEMA sends money, it's been declared a national emergency. It's going to move at the executive level. Money comes, but there's also money from the state of Connecticut from 5 other sources. You're not claiming the right to take all of that.
No, I think now it's
You can say it blew the town hall down and some of the money was to rebuild the town hall. I mean, I can see where the FEMA response money could go for roads and, infrastructure.
Right.
But there could be other things that would happen as a result of the storm. I couldn't see giving all that money to you guys. The FEMA money would be okay, but I mean, there's other things that could be funded. I just want to be sure that that's the limitation.
Yeah, I don't think that's the intent at all. Town hall, we will have something major like that. We have to build town hall. That's where that money should go. This is, reimbursement for money we already spent.
Already spent.
So this is existing money, right? You're talking about existing money that we're getting right now.
We starting out with $69,008, which is existing money. It's already been reimbursed to us and this specifically came from these sites.
Would this be in an account that could only be used for that?
That would be just only non-responsive.
Is there any approval mechanism or is it just what's in there that you guys kind of, that you? That's what I'm about. I mean, I'm fine with it being there. I just think we should be able to have it. It's a big, it's $50,000 expenditure. So financial.
Yeah. Somebody.
Right. Somebody's gonna be official uses of that one. Right?
Obviously, we're in the middle of it. Still, the most costs.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying you gotta call us
Right.
that night, say, hey, right, got a tree on the house.
So that's for a finance meeting in the middle of a tropical storm. I can see where.
But I agree with the concept, of put it into the fund, so it's not going to the general fund and get consumed. It's sitting there, the emergency happens, do your response, then you can come to the board and transfer the money from that fund to reimburse the line items spent on that. So this is really like kind of your shortfalls for.
Right.
The money's in there, and that's all you could use it for. You're not gonna be able to transfer it out for anything else, unless you do a transfer with about finance.
Right.
So correct, so the money will be there, and only be used to pay those items, correct?
That's what you said.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you're saying, these are just gonna be used for the emergency circumstances, and they only pay those bills. That's the way I'd like to see it set up. I'd make a motion that approve that money to go into the storm response fund to be used only for that purpose.
Can I ask a question? Can we make a motion? What's the board of selectmen?
So we already passed this at our meeting. So, yeah.
Gonna read everything. Okay.
Anybody second? All second, all in favor?
Discussion. Because I'm going to ask you to clarify, because I brought up incumbents of the board. We had them spending the money on the budget that we read, they come back to us and transfer it over. I'm thinking for tracking and accountability in the line items, instead of, we've got a fund over here, and 5 years from now, we're saying, we're getting $4,000.
Well, I think it's gonna be evident, but that's the reason why I asked, is that that's to be set up in such a way that the bills for, the only money that come out of that fund, the bills for the storm department.
Then that's gonna pay line items like overtime and parks department or whatever, it's gonna pay different line items.
Yeah, I imagine it's gonna follow the same guideline that you guys do reimbursement to people.
But the reason I'm saying pay it out of the budget and reimburse the budget is for you to track the overtime. Because the overtime is going to affect, the cost overhead for employees. So then you track it. It's not just a lump sum. Oh, we paid this.
So we would already be tracking that in grant application for the event at that time, right?
But that doesn't track it through the budget process. Right. They try to look at what we're actually spending as a town. We're spending money out of funds off budget.
Yeah.
It gets confusing to try to figure out where the money is and what's actually. So run through the budget and reimburse those line items, even if they got a shortfall. They've got to do what they have to do for the emergency response, but at least then we track.
But the budget's already there, right? You can't
Correct.
increase the budget, so. I guess go ahead.
You could track all the expenses in the general fund and then do a transfer in to offset any amount that you decide.
In other words, that money will be there until we get something from Devin or the first selectman said, here are the expenses for this one, will be approved and transferred to
Into the general fund, and then it'll be all in the same place.
I think you might over 20,000 on top.
Is that true? We've already established the fund, so we should have to do the general, we should have to look out even the expenditure. That's
Right.
I'm asking that. Yes.
not.
Doesn't.
No.
That's the question I was. But you're saying if it was over $20,000. That would increase the budget for over $20,000.
I think that was the idea behind using the fund. It's just that some money coming out of the fund, it's already there. As soon as we start to get.
Yeah.
Like I said, change from that part, you can just do it very specific.
Why not?
Now we have to.
Yeah, now you would have to go to town meeting. Yeah.
To expend the money from the fund?
To, no, if you put the expenses directly to the fund, you're talking about sales, sheet, you do not have to go to town meeting. And you can still have an approval mechanism to spend money, but if we put it in the general fund like I just suggested, then, and it was in excess of $20,000, you wouldn't do it at town meeting.
So are we keeping it in the general fund or should we be a separate?
So we're talking about setting up a new fund for the 69,000, and then when the expenses come in, then we would charge it to this new fund instead of the general.
So are you saying you wanted the general fund, so would have to go to a meeting or? Are you saying?
No, I just wanted to see.
Have
I
us
think
either.
you're trying to keep it all in one place because it's easier.
Right, I mean, if you got, $450,000 a year in highway department overtime, and you have a storm and you got an extra $15,000, well, the budget at the end of the year is gonna show you $55,000 in overtime.
It's easier.
Are you just trying to clarify that emergency storm response fund is not used for a storm overtime? Unless it's a emergency storm response to your FEMA event, right?
Correct.
Yeah, no, I had no issue, but I was just trying to figure out how we track it all in one place with the total expenses from the departments.
And to your point, Steve, it's more of a notification than a approval because they've already spent it at that point. But just letting us know, hey, spent $20,000 on the emergency fund for the storm accident.
Yeah, I mean,
It's really, we can break down that fund as far as all the expenses that fund. And you have the two numbers together. Oh, we can get
So how do you word that?
all I care is you put it in an interest bearing account. That's all I have.
it's a question from your boss.
But it's, are we putting it in the sparing account? Is that where you put the money in?
Yeah. Instead of a special fund.
Making a ton of that instead.
So 1%.
I'll get 3%. So,
It should be a little bit. Okay, all approved.
okay, and did you get how we're gonna set it up? All right, so. All in favor?
All in favor?
Can I just ask the one question? Sure. There's a hole, there's something dug out. Next, you come down Main Street and take that slides through the bridge by the old library. And there's the medical building out down that hill. There's some kind of a hole there. It's gotta be 9 or 10 inches deep.
In front of the house.
No, just at the hill, just before you start down. You can't see it, it's invisible. But I hit it with I got out, it's that deep. I don't know.
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody's gonna wreck their car.
Get hit in there, let's go.
Okay, utility fund. You so?
Utility funds.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I have a visual for you. Yes.
This is kind of supportive.
This is a summary of where we stand as of June 30th, 2022 with the utility fund. This is the solar / geothermal activity. So in 2015, you signed a lease to pay for the solar geothermal installations that you have all over town. And in the expenses here, I listed what the annual expenses are. And then I also show what the annual revenue has been. And it's estimated for the annual savings that we've derived as a result of the solar. And those are payments from the CREC, Source, and TLP, and Puro. And then savings that have been transferred in from savings in the electricity and oil accounts. So annually, the shortfall is about $749,000. We are currently making a $500,000 general fund contribution to offset the shortfall. But at the end of 2022, I'm projecting that we're going to have a $2.4 million deficit in utility. Any questions on?
So the annual savings, that's the money that we're budgeting now in our budget that's not spent to come back to the program, right? For electricity and oil that left over.
That's right. And then we also get payments from the electrical providers.
I have a question. I think it was at the February meeting, a group of engineers who were being employed by the town to try to straighten out the geothermal problem. They had a whole list of small things that were correct. High school, other areas, they thought they could make improvements, and we never heard any more about it. Were they successful? I mean, this has been, since this is June 30th, there should be some effect of what they did. Does this include that, or are they still working and trying to?
They're still working on some of those.
They're supposed to have something that by September, October. So they hired engineers.
Right.
Yeah, put this on and got hands on.
Has there been any positive effect so far?
They're not in the executive session and sure.
So yeah, there's nothing as of right now. There's nothing. They're still on their investigation. They have that cloud.
What was the original objective revenue? Break even, make money, I mean,
It's supposed to be cash flow positive, right? Obviously, it's a wild card here with the geothermal not working. When I was involved in setting this up, and the intent was that based on the cash flow analysis and everything else, it was supposed to pay for itself, but obviously, first year that I was out of office, I got transferred into his own fund out of the budget instead of showing it in debt service. Now, if it had been shown in debt service, people have been watching it, we would be in a situation right now. Because we would have said, we've got a problem, we need to budget half of that.
Well, you are budgeting $1 million a year currently to offset the shortfall.
We are budgeting.
Yes, you are. And you have been for 3 years now.
But it's just not showing up in the debt services.
It is showing up in that debt service section. It's a line item in the budget.
That isn't enough, right?
Right, it's
So it
not,
still isn't enough, but
it's not,
it's not what we want. I mean, that's conversation that has to be had.
Yeah, that can.
I know.
I have the pro forma that we originally did for this solar thing. And, you know, realistically, if you look at what our oil savings were projected as, it's all the oil savings were there.
Yep.
From what year do we figure we're in?
7th year.
We're in the 7th year. It would have almost covered the shortfall. But there's another problem with the shortfall. The problem is that where has the annual savings?
Yep.
The town has flat budgeted their electricity.
Yep.
And their oil.
Yep.
I believe, for the last 5 or 6 years, but the Board of Education has not. So instead of flat budgeting it, they've used that to probably, you know, make adjustments to the budget. So the amount we get back from them is varied on a year-to-year basis. Where I think that if it stayed flat, then we probably would have had more money have come back already. And that number could be significantly lower. That's something we need to talk about with the Board of Education. Because I already had a talk with them about it. There was some type of memorandum, what do you call it, MOU?
There was an MOU that was drafted, but it was never,
It was never signed. Was it signed by some parties and not all, or?
I don't.
Yeah, I just want to talk about Steve.
Yep.
Okay,
I've heard conversation about it now.
Yeah.
Between the Board of Education and the town.
but there's enough,
Never never signed by anyone. And every time we asked about it, even from the time where you were in building services, nobody had a copy of it. Nobody seemed to be able to actually free to that.
So that memorandum, as I understand it, was to say, okay, fine, there is a flat budget for this every year. You don't have to increase or decrease your oil or your electricity. And you're going to have an estimated increase of 1 to 3%. Is that correct, Devin?
That's what I was told.
Yeah.
Memorandum was-
So we-
we never saw it.
The memorandum never came out, but there also was something that we talked about the other day. Wasn't there a document when it was originally done saying everybody was going to budget a certain amount for that?
part of the resolution is said something to the effect that everybody could, flat budget hold their
Yeah.
budget at what it was in 2014 or 15.
And that was a town resolution. So that should have carried out through all the budgets. Yeah. So I went back and I pulled up the Board of Education budget for the year. Right after the agreement was made. And right in the Board of Education public hearing notes, it says utilities and building supplies. This line reflects an overall reduction, particularly in fuel oil. Future electricity and oil savings are expected to fund the solar and geothermal projects, providing further energy savings. And in that year alone, the amount budgeted was far in excess of what's been budgeted every year for the last 5 or 6 years. So I think we need to go and take a look at that number from the first year. What I have here based upon the see what budget this is. That's your current budget. So your budgeted items for that year, when we first started the agreement,
Just for my clarification, because I was just here, that's 2015.
this is for the 2015, 2016 budget, yeah. So your budget for that year for electricity and oil, hold on, I'm trying here somewhere.
But just you being 600.
Yeah, I'm looking for the exact amount. It's a really high number that's on the dog and pony sheet. But here it is. Your budget for that year for 15-16, right, was 536 for electricity, 300 for water. So I think if when we started there, because that would have been the year that your budget got approved for, going into that in the following years, because how I understand how the budget works now is that you guys get CLP bills, you pay the bills, and if you budgeted 400,000 for electricity and you had to pay 150,000 for CLP bills, that you write a check to the town at the end of the year for 250 that goes to the solar fund.
The balance that's left in our electricity account at the end of the year.
Does the oil account have anything to do with it?
No, the only other account I believe is dedicated expenditures account, which is the solar lease. So
So you guys have money in the solar lease account also?
there's a debt-related expenditures. 810, I believe, 810 or 820.
Do you know how much that is, Dave?
It's usually budgeted for approximately 147.
So is that money sent to the town every year to pay that lease?
The balance of that fund.
When you say balance, if it's budgeted for the lease, okay.
So we were continuously told, at least the back to it, because it's the solar lease, it's connected to geothermal. When we overexpend our oil needs,
Yeah.
and then I think we were allowed, and this is happening as well, that the debt-related expenditure account could be used to offset that. And then whatever the balance is, that's not, will be sent back to the town.
But what if you have your oil budget and you didn't expend all of it? Would that
Then
money
you
go back?
shouldn't, then I shouldn't have anything else coming out of that.
But should that money be going back to the town also?
I have to go back and verify what that happens.
I just think moving forward, obviously, the ball was dropped somewhere in there. And the shortfall for the town would be significantly lower. If we have those as additionally planned, your solar lease, your oil, and your electricity, even if we account for inflation be even higher, where those were all the same, I think we would have significantly more money come back to the town. And negative balance in the solar and geothermal fund, I think would be much lower today.
I know Diane has provided to me, I don't have it in here tonight, so I have you the amount that we've sent back for each of those accounts over the course of the, I think.
That's great. If we could go back to when it started, if we could get, the board of finance could get three numbers, you know, what the budget was for each year,
15, 16.
15, 16, all the way until today, how much your final budget had for oil, how much you had for solar lease, how much you had for electricity. And then what your final expenditures were in those three items. And that should equal the amount of money to step back to the town. Do you follow that?
Yep.
Yep. And I think, like I said,
Just
we have,
heating oil and debt-related expenditures.
yeah, and I think going forward, we have to get back to what the original intent was. Because when you guys use that line item, when you reduce it to be reduction that you asked for, it helps you, but it hurts the town solar. Like I said, we set up in such a way that hopefully we wouldn't have the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think from the Board of Education side of things, we were following the practices that we had a conversation with the town CFO. So when she would say that this was okay to do, and Diane would have conversations with Lisa, we would follow the recommendations of the town CFO. That submitted out. I mean, I provide you folks with a lot of information as part of the budget, but I did detail out in my budgets the last few years, the amount of money that we returned to the town on those line items. But I can put together this.
Yeah, I just, because right now we can't do it, we can't say, hey, you want to know, are you sure that's $1 million? No, exactly. So I think going forward, we need to minimize the losses in that fund to try and get it back. So I think if everybody, because I know the town looking at their budget, I haven't looked at all of them, but I'm pretty sure every single year since they allocate the same amount for electricity, and the difference goes back to the solar budget.
Right on this here, that they say, each year, the electric annual inflation rate is 3% of electricity.
Yeah.
And the fuel is 6%.
So I mean, if we go back to day one, we probably should next year have that figure for that increase in both of them. So that's how the budget move forward. Like I said, just to minimize this and get that meeting.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why that wasn't happening is again, we didn't have any formal documents on this. That's what we had.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying we probably should get one now.
This is the first one we've seen this.
Yeah. So you understand, I'm just trying to explain that we were never trying to hide anything and we were doing well. The interaction was that we were found there.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Nobody said, hey, every year you gotta make sure you do this, or nobody was actually following through
They
that.
mentioned like, oh, this is what we talked about, and there was this MOU, but then please provide me the MOU that's signed up.
Yeah.
That's where we fall down, right?
Is there an MOU? Is that anyone ever? Like,
Just one, you know,
We made only in words to my knowledge.
That was, what, 7 years ago?
Yeah. Does anything,
Resolution, the intent, the discussions, and there was some pushback from the board shortly. There was some pushback from the board shortly after the approval of something to the effect that you told us we have to budget flat money. It's been a long time. I'm gonna go back to all the board and meeting minutes and everything else.
we can't bring it. We can.
The intent was if the electric budget was $1 million a year. You budget that $1 million a year flat and don't change it. But from what it sounds like, for instance, has enjoyed the savings of the solar because the bills have gone down. So they reduced their budgets. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, but it hasn't, it's not like they want to reduce it every year.
Right, but it's
They actually give a check back to the town every year, right? So it changes. It fluctuates.
if they're reducing the amount,
Depends on the amount of truth.
I think some years it might even been higher.
but if they reduce the baseline, it's supposed to be $1 million, and it's now $700,000.
Yes.
So if they reduce it by 300,000, over the years, that 300,000 would stay constant, and it would still fluctuate based on this.
If we can just get to that and actually go back to the town budget just to make sure.
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So we have a more consistent amount of money going back into the budget for income every year.
The intent was to just budget the flat so we knew that it's paid for.
When was the debt related expenditure fund money? That just for the start of this program?
No, I think it was 3 years ago.
Well, April, I've been here for 4.5, and it's been here the entire time.
4.5 years.
And well, greater than 4.5. I had been here for 4.5. It was in line item prior to that. I believe it was created when the solar lease was actually created, probably back in 2015.
I think the first year was 15 or 16. I think it was from the 15, 16 budget, probably the first hearing out of that.
And what's happened with that, just, again, I mentioned this, it's only happened once inside of a year. As these payments have rolled off of that, that number has come down. So as you closed out leases, I want to say it might have been 3 years ago, one of the leases rolled off, and that dollar amount came down by, can't remember the amount, but I just remember it coming down because I remember having the conversation pointing out my detail.
You had one of the solar leases roll off 2 years ago?
Pardon me?
One of the solar leases rolled off the budget a few years ago?
If it did before, it may have before I got here, and I just didn't see it.
I'll find out what year that was, Steve. I'll get it against
Yeah, like I said, just so going into the next budget season, we can.
Well, you'll see it when I detail out the years, because you'll see the dollar amount.
Right now, you have 2 leases that are in.
Yeah.
One ends, the big one ends in 2031, and the smaller one, $172,000 lease. That's the annual payment. The last one for that one is 2024.
It's a couple of years.
But there is a buyout associated with that one as well, with the smaller lease. There's a $480,000 buyout that I'm working with the company, the credit company to negotiate how we pay that off. And then it's not factored into my numbers.
Certainly where we got it lined up, I think my bigger concern is that we've got $748,000 a year shortfall. Nice that the general fund picked up $500,000 of it, and 249 still getting.
Well, the recommendation on here is to increase something design. Double the design.
No, we didn't, that wasn't the intent.
This
What happens?
The recommendation on here is to increase the, is on this page.
Second
Second page, is to increase that contribution to 960.
Again, until the hole is fixed, they realize you have to plug the hole. But the hole exists in part of it. Yeah, like that.
I think next year the budget, and Sal's aware of it, obviously, right, the 960, if that's budgeted in, And, we can get get more money from the budgets actually going into that. And hopefully something happens with geothermal where that starts producing. There's, savings that'll get us there.
Has anybody looked at the Z-Rec revenue? There will be a report on that today.
I would imagine.
Figuring with her.
I have not. I mean, I can see what's posted in the general ledger, but I don't know how that compares to what was discussed.
Yeah, well, it's just trying to figure out what was projected when you did the cost analysis. Based on what you.
So if we could get somebody in who did this pro forma, that's fine. A couple of them.
That was Peter Kovaleski.
But there's other people involved, like,
Yeah. I think we should probably talk to some guys and have a look at that like that. Then go from there now.
because when you look at the Z-Rec income that's in here, how I see it, if I understand it correctly, it was only estimated we're gonna have 350 or 360,000 Z-Rec income. That's pretty close to what we actually got.
Yeah.
So that's not, I don't think it was shortfall. There's another big number of those. I don't understand. Is the Z-Rec income locked in at a certain amount?
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's usually based a couple of cents per kilowatt or whatever.
I mean, we signed the initial lease.
So,
It says based on $58 a Z. Are we getting more or less than that? Or is that change every year? Or go up?
Z-Rec credits will be determined by the computer, so that determines computer changes.
but it probably fluctuates with the market.
What? How much have we gotten back on oil savings?
Oil savings, I have to go through the town budgets.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's why part of it in the Board of Ed budget is oil savings as well as town oil savings should be coming back in. As part of the savings.
Basically, it looks like right now, we're not getting any money back from the oil savings. That's the direct hit. That's the bottom line that we're off.
Yeah.
You add up all the oil savings, that's our shortfall.
Because the oil savings would mainly be at the schools, right? Do we have geothermal in the town building? Yeah. So to get that type of oil savings, you would have to be coming out of your budget. As a same thing, electricity, oil.
But I mean, the answer is we don't know how to zero funds.
Is this from working at the library? It's over. It's fun.
Is that oil based also?
Are you
Some
ready?
of it?
Yeah.
That's.
Did it burn oil last year?
I don't know.
That would be the library.
I assume it burns some oil on the amount of it.
So, I don't think we have any numbers on that.
So I think we need more than this.
Yeah.
Because, but that's basically, our shortfall is what we projected our savings on.
That would be the field.
Now, I mean, there might be some savings, but that would tell you how bad the zeros are or not. It looks like the zeros in the energy savings, lights and the power. The number is pretty good.
You know, it's hard to capture the effect of what we might have paid in the budget. And not add solar. Or the geothermal.
Yes.
So I don't know if some of that is included on that schedule.
What do you mean?
An estimate of the cost avoidance.
Yeah. When is possible?
That's what I think that would be really hard to capture.
Yeah,
I like what you did here though, with other than the details, pay the 460. We budgeted additional 460, you're fine.
That's what I'm suggesting, maybe this budget, an additional 468,000 until the lease is paid off, and it could be, or can be looked at again if the geothermal comes online and results in additional savings.
But is that 460 plus the,
Plus the 500.
we really,
Well, part of this whole cost analysis too is they were basing the geothermal consuming electricity. So we actually over-engineered the solar, overbuilt the solar to make up for the extra energy that the geothermal system is going to consume. Well, we're not using those systems, or those systems are operating and consuming energy. We're not realizing the savings that we built into the design of the solar. So there's so many moving parts here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something. And I'm more than likely expressing on this. I've never heard anything as and I sat through national meetings like this, a lot of money, and everybody has some idea what's happening. We don't know if the order exists. We don't know how they're functioning. We don't know any of the changes in place. Some of these categories we can't even define. Is it possible to get somebody, pay somebody, and understand this and give us some kind of report? If somebody on the general podcast about it, we can say we're trying. Just like you said, there's so many moving parts. Is there anybody capable of explaining this so that we could actually have a handle on it?
well, part of it is
it's not rocket science. And basically, this is a pretty good map to follow of what they suggest. We have to find out where a shortfalls are.
Yeah.
So that all we have to do personally, anything else, I'm suggesting that maybe we bring in at least Gene and Butch. Talk to us, because they're in, everybody.
I can reach out to Peter. I can reach out to Peter. I mean, if Peter is going to look at this and he's the one who did the cash flow, if he's willing to look at it, he can always do this.
That would be the best.
That would be good.
Would there be any documents left over from the time when we approved that they had put together? That maybe it'd be more, because this, pro forma was done in 2014.
Yes.
So we probably have something, they have something that's maybe a little more up to date, maybe that's the explanation with it.
That's to be probably the energy committee, or are you talking about something that this document? Or something else?
Well, no, something a little more up to date. So when the energy committee met,
Yep.
they had to have documents and minutes and stuff like
Yep.
that. Where would that stuff be? Is that actually a hard file from that?
You'd have to-
Like it went to Karen, so they can't, you have, there's everything that's archived and stuff.
You would have to ask, probably the best first place to start is asking Beth what the energy committee's answer.
Was she the,
Documents.
Here.
I mean,
Karen was
Karen
the,
would have the minutes, but the documents, it's supporting documents and stuff.
Yeah.
They may have someplace else.
Who was the reporting secretary?
I think so.
was Karen the first?
And I appreciate the one who did, summarizing the yards. I've had before. I don't understand cost changes, contributions.
I don't understand a lot of it either.
Oh, no,
So, complex.
Well, but basically, they designed the system to produce X amount of KW. You need to see if that's living up to what it said. It said it's going to save you X amount of gallons of fuel per year. We have to look at the numbers to see if that's what stuff. The costs are irrelative to what the stuff is. This is the system producing what it said it would do.
That's really the bottom line, how I look at it from a business aspect, saying, did you get your money's worth? And if you didn't, what are we going to do?
And based on the shortfall we've seen, I'd say the answer is no. Well, I have put some meat behind that.
But we don't know what we don't know what the original system was designed to do. So until we see what it's designed to do, what the numbers are that it's generating, that's your answer. That's what we're gonna find.
Yes.
Telling, I know Dennis has been going for a few years, but do you know? Obviously, he must have stuff in his office relating to all these programs. Do you require those? To know what those are?
I know there was a box with the contracts from all the relevant contractors.
Yeah.
I don't know what the box included all of the solar and all of the geothermal stuff somewhere. I don't have it.
So there might be something that was saved like that too, someplace.
I might offer another consideration here too, is that not all of these shortfalls can be attributed to one thing or another. It's a combination of a lot of things. And what comes to my head is that when all of this was proposed, electricity was a certain amount per kilowatt. From my memory, the year after all this was done, the cost of electricity dropped. I'm beginning to typically the cost of electricity would go down, it goes up. That's what we expect. So I think when they did ROI, they were expecting costs of electricity, all the energy costs of electricity going up to continue to go up. It was an unpredicted, the cost of oil went down, the cost of electricity went down. That's also
They caught up already though, so that's.
right now for the first 5 years of the project they had.
But again, you start to see this level out and savings, but the shortfall will go away.
It's still gonna be how many kilowatt you're gonna produce. That's what they base it on, cost of it. It's relative. I mean, that will create a shortfall, but are you getting what you get? That's.
Right, there's other factors going to be big energy costs going up and down.
But it's, if we save 5,000 gallons of fuel a year, and the price difference is what it is, but we saved it, then we're just gonna have to put more money in the budget for it. If we said we're producing, 15 megawatts a year, and we're only producing 12, well, that's a challenge. And I don't know what the numbers are. Any of this know
No, not yet. Basically, we need to find out what we're back on Z-Rex and how does it compare to what we have. And how do we generate any fuel savings, we find out what that is. And how do we get to where we should. Right now, the solar panels are probably working pretty good. At least that's my impression.
The zero income seems to be alive in what they have. And their initial estimate, which seems to be the only thing that's kind of like that. And
The payments right on the button.
Yeah, it's going to depend on what our contract is, whatever source. Short term 7 years, see that contract right now is $126.
It is.
It's
The new projection, I think you.
right. So we have to see what our contract labor source is. And then see what that's, and maybe our contract is fixed.
Oh, we have to start somewhere, so we have to take a look at it.
In terms of the town government is in charge of seeing results, just.
I think it's.
Yeah, so you said that's all.
Bruce oversees the solar and make sure it's running.
Yeah.
You said September, we're getting the final report on the.
So September, October is what,
Huh?
September, October. Should be on the back.
We have to cover the bills. Right, so I think our next thing is to do a deep dive on this find out where we are or why. How our numbers compare.
So that 460 gonna hit next year's budget, correct?
Yes, that was really the purpose of, talking about, they wanted to give you, some notice that we needed to start funding the deficit here. They're suggesting $460,000.
So do we know yet if we show that on the school board budget, Tom, absorbing it, really? We just have to figure it out, before it out.
It would be in the line item where we are budgeting 500,000 right now in the debt service line item. So it'd be increasing it from 500,000 to
96.
960.
Now, the hard part is we have to find income.
Or something else, something.
We have any debt service coming off anytime next year?
Not yet, not for a couple of years.
24.
Well, I think you meant, did you mean the general fund debt service?
Any debt service,
Any of them.
any of it will be a savings.
We do, but not next year. 2027. Yeah, the debt service, it comes down, about 400,000. Starting, for 26, 27.
So if you want
So
to-
it's, yeah, you're 3 years out.
Oh, we're 3 years old.
Yeah.
On this other lease that we got, about 172,000 a year, you said there's a buyout on that one,
There's a $408,000 buyout.
so then we've got 2 years left of that.
Yeah.
2024.
3 and 24.
So $400,000 items would be higher than the $172,000.
Now, I'm trying to negotiate with them to see if they will, and I think they will accept the lease payment. If we continue the lease payment, we want the same amount. And finance.
Yeah, because I remember reading that in that lease there, that was one of those where the lease company, they basically got all the money up front, and everything afterwards is gravy. And we're kind of touting it, so you get 4 or 5 years in, this company's probably gonna say, here, buy us out. So that's the $400,000 item. But no, that number doesn't work this far into it, but 2 years ago, that number worked.
I wasn't looking for any action on the budget. This was really more of an information.
Okay, so just praising us for the,
And I'm gonna have to go further, I think we're gonna have to have a meeting.
as we, that dig deeper, that we know, down there.
You have to have that answer to either. I'll get a hold of Dean and,
The point Tony made a couple times, you know, where are we compared to what was promised in terms of delivery of energy and saving the fuel and the rest of it?
Thanks for putting that together.
Brave to bring a document like that. Steve will tell you that he's a good document.
I've got that. It sells. So.
You still have it? I just cleaned my office out.
Play with the numbers. Play with the numbers.
Manufacturing name Stafford or something. You're still a real here. I was like, okay, whatever it is.
Well. I don't know, see how to- where we. Here it is. Well, okay, we'll close this stuff and when we, talk about school work.
Well, in the continual pattern of great news, we wanted to provide you with an update regarding the middle school roof replacement project. I had a couple of meetings with Sal in terms of where we're at with that process. I know we discussed it here at length regarding the project and how we want to move forward with it to the state. But really, it got to the point where we needed to completely reset the project. And that's how Jakinski did come from Jakinski Community. Architects, the gentleman who assisted us as part of the oil tank replacement project. He's the sort of the expert as you go through the state reimbursement grant project. Really, so a couple things. Obviously, I think Rob just passed out the updated estimate of cost. And while that's gone up, I do want to start off by just explaining, and as you know, this is an important project for us to figure out how to get done. It's a summer only type project, so we really need to make sure we have our ducks in a row so that this can happen for the summer of 23. The roof does continue to need to be repaired continuously. Right now, it's really the best analogy I can give you is we're trying to stick fingers into a leaking dam, and eventually, the pressure behind that just builds up so much that something lets go. We don't want to be in a position of having a major section of that roof. So Al and Rob Butler, who's the new director of school facilities, can take you through just in terms of the overall process for now. And then Rob can give you an even more, a deeper understanding of where the roof is at. So that's really where we're at. So Al, if you want to walk it through the project.
Thank you. Al, you can see our next for Berlin, Connecticut in October of last year, were commissioned by the Board of Ed. Reviewed the existing roofing on middle school, prepared plans, specifications, and a budget. All specified. Let me review the budget estimate with you. It's 2 pages. We have to look at the front and the back, but let's start with the front first. You got 55,600 square feet of roofing that does not include the metal roofs on here. And that they're in very good condition. Also, replacing that. That replacement cost for a 20-year EPN roofing system is $1,030,640. I can tell you that within the last few years, a lot of this new because of COVID, roofing has gone up tremendously. If we were here 2 years ago, or before COVID, that 1.2 million, which is about $23 a square foot, we're probably been about $10 a square foot. So we're seeing an enormous increase in roofing costs. The removal of existing roofing is $111,360. Now, by the way, you notice there's 2 columns, ineligible and eligible. The state of Connecticut will not reimburse you for certain ineligible components. That's why they require us to exist this in both columns. So the state will only pay you for a 20-year roof. We always did a 30-year system as an alternate. That should be about $4,030. I can tell you just about every one of my municipalities that I do does take a 30-year warranty. It's a material and labor warranty by the manufacturer. So it's not prorated by the way. If for some reason your roof fails in year 29, they'll replace it. I haven't seen that happen yet, but that is where the warranty is. Replacement of 22 roof drains. I can imagine those will go over 30 years. Roof drains technically are not reimbursed by the state, but in our situation, by the fact that the asphalt built-up roof and we're installing a rubber roof, the asphalt is not compatible with EPS. The state will allow us to put that into the eligible line item. Replacement of smoke, the state snow patches, that's ineligible. There's no way those snow patches can here over 20, 30 years, so we're recommending that you replace it at present. Motion non-compliant with tax cash will be reimbursed by the state. Any equipment that's, any service or equipment that's within 10 feet of the edge of the roof and set ocean railings. We need about 180 feet of those ocean railings that is eligible. There's some masonry issues around the perimeter of, that's only masonry that's above the roof line. I'm not addressing the masonry that's not above the roof itself. It's about 5,500 square feet of masonry installation that's eligible. Control through parking eligible. Window parking also eligible. There's gas pipe supports that will have to be replaced as part of this project that is eligible. There's some abandoned rooftop units that you no longer use. There's also flashing that or recommending that we take it up about $2,000. There is some asbestos on the roof, not in the original roofing, but in the repairs and flashes that we made, not much. There was report done by Environmental Services and they're estimating about $1,600. You mentioned early on in your meeting about the state education fund. We about the state will not be pushing for that. And that's $403,000. So construction cell phones, ineligible line items, 128,498 eligible, 1,442,640 for total construction cost of 1,571,138. Okay, go to the second page. So on the second page, we're carrying over the two eligible, uneligible line items. Initially, the construction contingency, recommending 15%. Even though I have to tell you, I have not spent the roofing contingency in the last 3 years. But you never know. There's a lot that we're exposing that we can't see. They have 50,000 square feet that's be opened up. I doubt that we're extended, but I'm still recommending each area. Not necessarily for maybe things that I discovered, but the fluctuations of the industry of roofing costs. I need a safety valve and it just needs to pop up. We go to the our fees along some 48,000, but the state wants us to allocate a portion to some which been eligible. The industrial hygienist fee, the driveway is fixed item, I got that was 500, and I'm carrying $5,000 for the spouse printing, legal, etc. Again, prorated eligible. Ineligible public project costs of ineligible up and eligible items 1,086,308. The state reimbursement presently is 71% of the eligible line item. So that's 71% of the 1.4 million. So you should get that from the state 1,058. If you add that to the ineligible line items, the cost of the down south of it's $800,000. You know, they've realized that it is at 250,000 of contingency. Now, if you spend the construction contingency for the course of the project on an eligible component, that will be considered eligible expense. So for this project to go forward, the state requires the town allocate your portion of the project, which is $850 for the business management vehicle file, SCGO 4442, which is the application for state reimbursement. It's called a grant, but in reality, it's not a grant. That's getting the money. But if you spend it, it's to be reimbursed. Same thing to happen on your own big project, but we'll be clear about it.
Amber, is any of this stuff going to pop up under grant funding?
There's certainly, I guess it would depend. It seems like an urgent project that's underway. Summer of 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
There's community facilities grants, things like that.
So if any of these fees are even paid by the school?
So just for clarification, you can't utilize grant funding for a state reimbursement.
I'm done for the next step.
You're not, you can't double dip.
Okay.
They will not reimburse you.
The abandoned equipment, it's like, what was it, air conditioning?
It's all fans that aren't
So
used
nothing
anymore.
that needs to be replaced and.
No, they're basically curbs that are just capital. It's not a lot.
So they put the-
There's a few odds in there. There's some of the conventional units that aren't used anymore. By the way, your roof is 31 years old as of today. It's going to be 32 years next year. It's a 4-ply built-up roof. It is a 20 roof that's designed. I see built-up roofs still 35, 40 years, but not in that particular situation. The only time you can see a built-up roof though, that duration, maybe on a concrete deck. With very low insulation, like a manufacturing facility goes up on the Madawaska district water ocean plant, and they're built with so 35 years old, just replaces that. Your built roof is over about that. That's a lot of, definitely on your roof. And unfortunately, you've got your municipality and now you're on borrowed time, but,
I think you said you weren't expecting to replace any panels or something.
I don't know. But
That's not in here.
no, it's not in its contingency. The way we did replacement of deteriorated buildings, we put in an allowance, I'll say to the contractor, carried in your proposal, let's say 500 square feet of metal deck replacement, and then give me the unit price to go up and back. If not replace any metal deck, that's gonna be about 550 square foot up there right now.
So there's a small amount already in that 500 square feet.
Right, yeah, and so if you don't
A few
replace,
panels here.
except if you don't replace any metal deck at all, then you get a credit at the end of the project for that project. I can tell you the vast majority of time includes credit that all that project.
The same with all the leaks we've been dealing with for a long time. Like I'd be shocked if without a few panels up there that need to be.
The test that's we took, we did not see any rust. But again, our test is only about 8 inches by 8 inches. You are going to see a little bit of thermal efficiency because we are designing this front door, which is minimum R30 insulation. That's at the low points. So it's probably going to be an average of about 35 dollars. So you will see a little bit of the cost savings in your expenses.
So the new construction will be metal decking, insulating layer, and then EPDM.
Right. All you're going to get. The amount we show here, that was 20 amount. Well, the 30 years in the ineligible component, because the state of the yeah, the state of the Lowry, which it is.
The 800,000 is all of the ineligible, plus our portion of what's due.
Has the board of ed already paid any of these fees, like the engineering and the so forth?
We've begun payment when June's begins, and then when the project gets completed, our work with him is actually reimbursable. So they.
But you guys have had the funds to pay them.
Yeah, the hygienist was paid, so that was paid for the test beds. We were paid a portion, I think, people our documents, our plans are actually complete. We only still have specifications. So,
Yeah. But the question I'm asking is, the board of ed has the money to pay that portion.
The Board of Education paid the portion out of bill to us already. And one of his complete costs that are in,
Which is how much?
his complete costs were 48, when he has it right, you know,
exactly. We billed so far for 12,000. And we'll pay.
Is the 48,000 already in your budget?
No.
None of that is?
No.
Glenn, do you know what the amount that we have in the capital improvement budget for the school?
275,000.
And how about the excess costs from?
That's a discussion. There is right now there's 725,000 in the excess costs. And I don't know if, we had talked about, I think the board of ed approached you about, so taking something that.
approached, a month ago, maybe, about the 21-22 excess cost reimbursement.
So the discussion was for us to give you the money, then the money was pretty much going to come back to us and go into the capital improvement to pay things like that.
Yes.
So that 725. Okay, well,
Well, and then we got in 303,000 for the 2021-22 excess cost. So are you saying you would apply that to that capital projects fund?
no, we hadn't applied anything to that budget for a while. Right?
Okay, so I guess I didn't follow what you were.
So when I had a discussion with you the other day, we talked about the excess cost money,
Yep,
and you said the excess cost money is actually in a separate place.
Yep.
That's not included in our bottom line or our
right,
general fund.
that's right.
So right now, the excess cost money has come in. That's a total of 725.
Yes.
So that other money you talked about, that's already in.
The 725 is everything that's in there at the end of 22.
Yep.
And that includes the 21-22
Excess
receipts
fund.
that came in.
That's 303,000.
That's the 303,000.
In
but-
previous years.
Right. But we also used $223,995 to balance the 23 budget.
We use how much about?
The town,
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
so I take 725 minus. So the 725 is an accumulation of prior years.
Yep.
And for the 23 budget, you use $222,995 of that for the 2022 budget. So,
For the Board of Ed?
no. No, just for general. So I have to subtract that from 725,000. So then there's $501,000 available. Not, so, and that $501,000 includes the 303 that came in 21-22.
So in essence, what we have is 501 left over in that excess fund.
Right.
And we have 277 right now in the capital project.
Sorry about that.
277, simply.
Yeah, 275 of the capital projects.
Everybody following that? Yep.
And when you say capital projects, just for our point of clarification, we're talking about the non-lapsing unexpected.
Or board of that.
So make sure we're using the same terminology. By word of that.
Yeah.
We don't call it that.
Because that was, yeah, I mean, that was the purpose of the fund for something like this.
Right, the purpose of the non-lapsing fund was for when major expenditures needed to be paid. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have to necessarily come to the town and say, please take it out of the reserve. We have this side account that's.
That sounds like one of those expenditures, but yeah.
And we want the town to cover the bill.
What I need the town to cover, if you can spare me from the state levels, I need the Board of Education. I need the Board of Finance and the town to officially approve the fact that you would be covering $800,950.
You have to be careful of talent. So let's say my estimate is that the conclusion of the project, we're going to allow $1,571,000. You're not going to get reimbursed for that to pay that money. So the total cash flow, your portion, yes, it's correct, is $800,000. But you may have to pay it out from the federal fund until you get that.
So general fund.
Right, so we need to appropriate the entire amount.
Well, there was a time, there was a time that the state would require us to approve the entire amount, like when we did the other tank project. They've changed that for whatever reason to make it more confusing for everybody. So now you only have to commit to the amount that we would need to reimburse. Where in reality, you still have to pay out the full amount, and they then send you back.
On a monthly basis, once you start the project. So we still have to.
No, right. No, we just said we only have to approve about of the town thing, but you're making us aware that we're gonna have to pay the full bill.
Right.
And let's just say the full bill because you've never had to use the 15%. We'll probably be like 1.3. In best case scenario, that might be down at 1.3 or whatever. That we're paying out, getting the reimbursement for the 800,000. So in the end, the road putting out could be less.
And you said on a monthly basis, these are progress payments as you go, right over how many months? 3 months?
Until the project's complete. They do hold back for an audit, and I believe it's 5% of all that number. And usually that audit takes unfortunately 2 to 3 years. They said, we'll get it without the project.
So understanding it that way, are we okay to move ahead with this? With the understanding that the money that I'm saying we should use is the money that's in excess fund. The money that's in the cost capital improvement fund. Will be that money's gone. that's going towards this.
But we're still gonna be short.
A little bit.
We're gonna be short by 25,000, 26, 20, 24.
We need town meeting. It's too.
Yeah, you-
So you need town meeting approval.
So the next step is after, get it correctly, if I'm wrong. Step here is for the board of finance to approve expenditure.
800, 950.
Our next step would be to go to Sal's meeting as the board of selectmen.
Yep.
Who then needs to go through a process and I believe moving forward to a town meeting. And then we hold the town meeting for final.
Yeah.
Blessing if we go.
Because we technically can't spend any money, we just approve you guys, but sorry. That's all.
Yeah, the town starts to approve it, looks like it was.
But it's still.
It doesn't matter, ABDA.
Yeah, but just for clarification, what I'm saying is where these funds are actually gonna come from. Does that make sense? And can this be part of the motion?
It could be part of it.
But I'm still concerned because you're still gonna have to pay out the 1.86. Where you're going to draw that other million from before we start getting out. General fund.
Of the general fund? And usually what's the amount of time that between that coming in?
How long did it take for the oil tank? Come back.
You have a question, Sal, or you have a concern?
He was, I was wondering how we can apply for reimbursement on it. Do it monthly, because then you wouldn't have to be in the hole in the entire 1.5. You just.
Monthly, you're paying and you're getting.
It's only, what, 2-3 month project?
The construction itself, it's a good sized project, they'll definitely get a roof from you. You get a salt out of greenwood. And you don't like it out in 6 weeks.
So it's not very long.
I think that's a goal to get it done in the summer, right?
You have to, you can't move over like that. There's no way.
Like, and in reality, the difference between the 770 that we already have and the 1.5 million. $800,000. $750,000. So is what would be liable from the general fund. Correct? I mean, that's some of those directly back to the general fund. Reimbursement.
No, it goes back.
Goes back to the town,
For the town, no, the town would have to throw back into.
Yeah, but we're talking-
Are we sure? Oh, yeah, sure.
No. Well,
Yes.
yes, but no, right, the first off, go right back. Based on these numbers, I agree with doing it that way, using, like I said, excess cost money and, what do you want to call that fund, Steve, the other one?
Well, if you're, and I just like clarification. If you're talking about utilizing the non-lapsing, unexpended fund, there's a portion of that fund which is allocated to the security grant, which is still ongoing. And I want to say that was 70-something thousand dollars. I don't have the exact figure for you, but there is a security grant that was earmarked.
I don't
That's been
know.
unallocated for a lot of years, right? Do you have that one?
I've never heard of them.
I can get you the exact number, because that's the grant that I mentioned funded last year.
Well, then you should have that as covered amount, right?
It's not encumbered,
It's not covered.
no.
I'm just saying it's unencumbered, so it's. When is that expected to be completed?
This is the final year that we were able to complete it. Has to be expended by the end of the year.
This, if I remember correctly, it's something like 3 or 4 years ago, right?
It's something that started, I think Devin wrote it his final year.
Yeah.
I got approved the following year and they just extended it for a final year to all the COVID.
Extended wall.
The ability to utilize the grant.
Okay. Is there a reason why it hasn't already been used?
I would have to talk to the 2 previous directors of school facilities, but now I would be able to talk to Mr. Butler about it.
Hey, Rob, how's this been done? You've been there a couple weeks, how come it's that?
We'll get rid of it.
Understood, but that's something we deal with at that point, correct? That money,
When it gets finalized.
Yeah.
It's much like it is, you have to do the expenses.
Yeah.
To get paid out, and then we get a reimbursement on that, except for the portion of the.
yeah, so right now it's not encumbered, but so we can use that toward our motion, here, correct? Or are you going to encumber it now? You don't have enough.
I would encumber it now, and because you already know, you already approved it, planned it, and
Okay,
Then I'll get you
Is there more discussion or can I make a motion?
I think I made a motion, please. Is there any kind of estimate of how long this will be like that last?
The entire building, yeah, well, I can't tell you. We have been done any work on building up and then
20 years, but the roof will be better than 20 years. 30 years.
just looking at it, I mean, we do a lot of school work. I mean, the building's been interior's maintained well. I don't see, other than some deterioration, same as a result of roofing. The little plan that you have in front of you, the Google Maps, by the way, the beam that was developed by Rob, and you think is where the majority units are. It's very easy to get up out of the roof, go up there. You don't have to do questions. It's another shit of rocks. The highlighted perimeter, which is all the perimeter flashing, a lot of movement there. That has to do with the fact that it's a metal deck, steel construction, it's supposed to move a lot, where it's perimeter wall stone. And that's where you get some opening, some issues with, with flashing.
And one of the, I mean, implication of my question, doesn't seem to be any foundation problem.
I don't know, I can't tell you that.
Not that I'm aware of, I know the question was asked a few years back, but we were in that position about all of our buildings. We've had some issues with sidewalks, things like that.
Yeah.
None from out driving buildings. My biggest concern with making sure that we move this forward and get this done is anytime you have water leaks in buildings,
Oh, yeah, it's all the problem.
there's a lot of words that I don't want to use, especially to put into the minutes that become an even larger issue.
Yeah, I understand that. It wouldn't make sense. So it's a huge foundation.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Shut.
I guess,
I'll make a motion if it was done. I make a motion that we send to town meeting the amount of $800,950,000 as requested by the Board of Ed with replacement, subject to us utilizing the excess cost funds of approximately $725,000, as well as the unencumbered portion of the
Non-lapsing, unexpended.
yes, yeah. That's
No,
fine.
it's not 725,000, it's 505,000.
I'm sorry, 505,000. All right, so I amend the motion to 505,000. That's it.
501.
501,000,
Here's what I know.
as well as the unencumbered portion of the unexpended.
Non-lapsing.
Non-lapsing.
Non-lapsing. People-
And obviously the rest of Hey, what's that, Aaron?
Second,
I'll make a second. Second, all in favor?
So Steve made the motion to send 800 and something to the town meeting. Don't have to send an entire 1.5 million to the town meeting. We're appropriating the whole thing, we're committing to the whole thing.
Right, if the state for some bizarre reason, so.
Well, we're committing to spending the whole, we're committing to.
I think we do.
My suggestion would be to send it to the town,
Yeah,
the full amount with the explanation that, would be the only cost.
Okay, how long did it take to put that? Yeah,
You send it out on a monthly basis.
we're well, sorry. 2 months, 3 months, a year, 6
And
months.
I was wrong on the time.
Yeah, that, we're not,
If we're talking 40 years ago, we weren't getting $1,000,000. So we are.
I can find out.
just curious, worst case, we're floating $800,000.
So do we need to approve the whole amount for the town meeting or just need to?
I think
We have to.
all around the town.
So we probably need to amend that.
Clarify what is the.
What's that? Wasn't hold on yet? All of that is to send the whole amount of 1.86330 to town meeting.
I'll second that.
Hold on, but that.
I'm sorry.
With the amount of the town's contribution to the 800,000. After years of. Yeah, you'll do it for funds, right?
Now you can check.
I'm not sure what's. I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Thanks.
Can I, just a second.